welcome to the season 3 recap of Bridgerton. Now, my thoughts going into this were that Shonda Rhimes, who I trust implicitly with romance, is still going to have to work her magic to have me believe that Penelope and Colin are somehow a love match. First of all, he friend-zoned her to the point of embarrassment last season. I'll link that video up in the cards if you need a recap. And also, they went too long in the friendship with her pining away, him not seeing her. And so I already feel like she deserves better than him. Another thing is, in these kinds of romances where we're kind of told to believe that the female character is unconventionally attractive and the guy is the hot sought after one, there still needs to be some baseline chemistry even before either one of them or both of them starts to catch feelings. I mean, remember that movie, The Duff? That was the perfect reluctant allies to friends to lovers movie. And in the beginning, you don't know how these two are going to get together, but you can feel that it will happen eventually because they have so much chemistry. Also, Davy and Paxton and Never Have I Ever, their early interactions where he had no feelings for her, obviously it's going to happen, and you see it because they have a lot of chemistry. And Pen and Colin have never had any such chemistry, even just as friends. So yeah, we're going to have to see if I change my mind. By the way, I also found myself wanting to see a bit more of Edwina this season. Remember, the Queen had set her up with her nephew, the prince with the sideburns. I would have liked to see more of that, but oh well. Anyway, onto the video. It's the start of the season, and as always, we're dying to know who the Queen's diamond is going to be. Francesca Bridgerton is making her debut this season. Eloise is on the circuit, but she's not exactly looking for a husband. She was shunned by polite society last season, remember, but she's recovered quite nicely. And Penelope Featherington will be entering her 3rd season, having been unsuccessful in previous seasons. Also unsuccessful, surprisingly maybe, or maybe not, is Cressida Cowper, who is now a little desperate to find a husband. Colin has returned from his travels on the continent and he's had a glow up apparently. The girls are very impressed with his bigger physique and his travel adventures, and he's turned into quite the flirt as well. So the ladies are all presented to the Queen and she's not really impressed. She even yawns at one point. Francesca comes walking down and the Queen is momentarily intrigued, but she doesn't really single her out or give her attention like she has the previous diamonds. The Featheringtons are pretending that their late Aunt Petunia had left them a fortune, but that's not true. I think it was leftover money from last season's grifter cousin. Remember when he charmed all the investors and wanted to run out of town with the stolen money? Yeah, could be that. Pen sees Colin giggling and flirting with some girls, and he hints at telling them of his adventures, but he kind of just keeps them guessing. And please, Bridgerton, we don't need another whole season of Penelope pining after Colin. We had that already last season. So a little less of this, I hope. Colin and Pen finally catch up and she's very polite, but she's short in her answers and she walks away from him before he really gets the chance to talk to her. Pen is very stressed. Is it because Eloise discovered she's Lady Whistledown and this has ruined their friendship? Is it because she's pining over Colin, who's likely going to take a bride this season? Or, remember, could it be that she overheard him last season telling his friends that he would never date her? She goes to Madame Delacroix then and she decides that she wants a makeover. She wants a husband so she can finally move out of her family home, and she tells Madame Delacroix that she wants her new look to be Parisian inspired. Colin had mentioned something about Paris in his conversations with her. Eloise and Penelope finally meet, and Penelope apologizes for writing those damning things about Eloise. Remember, she outed Eloise for reading feminist novels with the working class folk in town? Well, yeah. Mr. Mondrick is looking very handsome in his purple getup. This whole storyline, by the way, seems like an afterthought. It's very boring, but I'll be quick. He's, remember, the guy who owns the bar, the gentleman's club type place where all the men of the ton go. Anthony and Kate are still very much happy and in love, and Lord does Shonda love a steamy sex scene, which sometimes sucks because this is the show that I would want to watch with my gran, you know? And then, Pen's getting ready for Lady Danbury's ball, and I cannot wait to see what she looks like. I love a good Lainey Boggs moment. She makes her appearance finally with a gorgeous emerald dress on, a showstopper, and everybody's looking at her. Her hair and her makeup are exquisite. And Colin has noticed. Some men come over to talk to her, pay their compliments, but Pen fumbles because she's not used to getting this kind of attention. Get it together, Pen. By the way, I just want to say that even though Eloise doesn't have much of a story this season, she's as funny and charming as ever. Also, I would love to be in her situation because she's not really pressured to find a husband just yet, so she just gets to wear pretty dresses and gossip and hang around the parties. The Queen still hasn't chosen a diamond, and Francesca, who seems to be in the running, isn't exactly out there being the belle of the ball and making herself available to potential suitors. She just doesn't seem interested in love at all. She just wants to play the piano. She and Pen strike up a conversation then because they do have a lot in common, what with being kind of the odd ducks in their families, feeling the pressure of this courting ritual. A man comes to talk to Pen then. His name is Lord Debling, and they're getting along quite well. But Cressida sees this, feels threatened, and she steps on Pen's dress, causing it to rip. Lord Debling goes to find her a tailor, and Pen runs off embarrassed. Colin goes to find her outside where she went to get some fresh air, and he tells her that her dress really suits her, and he wrote to her during the summer, but she never responded. He says that he's missed her. Then she tells him that she overheard him telling his friends that he would never court her. She walks off. Eloise does later call Cressida out for what she did to Penelope. By the way, they're friends now, and surprisingly, this friendship is quite fun. Lady Featherington gets a visit from an esquire wanting to know more about a mysterious document that says that the Featherington estate should go to the first heir of one of the Featherington daughters. He suspects that the document might be a forgery though, and he warns her that if he finds out that it is, it's going to be a huge scandal because the estate would have to be passed on to another family. Lady Bridgerton talks to Francesca and tries to get a sense of where her head is at, and she's a lot less pushy than the other mothers. She wants her kids to find love and security and be happy, and she does encourage them to go out there, but she also makes sure that they know that they have a choice. Colin comes to visit Pen, and he apologizes for the comments that she overheard last season. He says that he's not embarrassed of her, and he does that thing, flattering her in the way that people do when they're still trying to friend zone you. He tells her that she's smart and she's warm and how she makes him feel good about himself, and he's starting to see himself the way that she sees him, and he's proud to call her his friend. He then offers to teach her how to be charming so that she may find a husband. To be fair to Colin, he's never once led Pen on. She just has this endless crush on him. Anyway, they shake on it as friends, and she's going to be getting lessons on how to catch a husband. You know what? Charm school with the not that charming Colin might be very entertaining, so I don't hate this idea. Lady Whistledown suggests that the Queen might be scared of choosing a diamond this season, but the Queen doesn't take the bait, not yet anyway. She says that the reason why they're called a diamond is because they're rare. By the way, the Queen and her look here is just perfection. Colin also gets a call out from Lady Whistledown as well about his new personality, and she asks whether this is the real him or not, and if he himself even knows. Also, look at the embroidery on Eloise's jacket here. She looks so pretty. The costumes this season have been divine, and I suppose they always have been, but because this episode has been fairly uneventful, I'm noticing them a lot more. Anyway, that was a pretty uneventful episode 1. In episode 2, Mondrick's son becomes the young Baron of Kent, and their family move into their new home, and this family is going to become part of the Ton now. Colin introduces Pen to some men, and she fumbles again. He doesn't teach her anything though. He just tells her, well, just fan yourself and flutter your lashes and they'll be impressed. It figures. Lady Featherington gently nudges her daughters to give her heirs. They need to secure the estate. Colin has a threesome with some prostitutes, and then he goes to chat with Pen afterwards. It's a boring scene. He's all, you have to stop caring about what people think and all that. How are we 12 minutes into episode 2 and nothing has happened? Zero passion, no flirting. I can't predict who's going to fall in love with whom. Everyone is just talking and it's very boring. Pen's next lesson with Colin is in the Bridgerton drawing room, and Colin has them pretend that they're at a ball and they role play, with Colin being the suitor and Pen practicing her flirting skills. And then they have a moment, but it's just a whisper of a moment, a sliver of a moment, where Colin sees her. Soon they're interrupted though, at first by their own realization of what's happening, and then by some sounds outside. So Pen has to go and hide. They've been friends for so long, I don't know why they're hiding. Later we do find out that it's because Pen had that falling out with Eloise. Also, Colin is one of the most eligible bachelors, and it wouldn't look right if he's helping Penelope, so they do keep it a secret. Pen finds Colin's diary then, and she starts reading it. He catches her and he doesn't like it because this is his private diary, but apparently he's a very good writer. He cuts his hand on some glass then, and she bends down to put a piece of bandage on it, very tenderly, and they have their second sliver of a whisper of a moment, and then they're like, oops, this can't happen, and then they both retreat. At the ball that evening, Colin and Pen chat, and she says that she would love to read more of his writing. He says, sure, if you flirt with somebody, remember the lessons, and it goes poorly, of course. Lady Bridgerton matches Francesca with her fellow music lover, and he's quite charming, but not for her. Lady Featherington is shocked to find out that her daughters don't even know what sex is. Apparently, they've just been kissing their husbands all this time. One of them says that he even keeps his pants on the whole time. Honestly, this is so wholesome and silly, but in the best way, because I imagine in the Regency era, these kinds of husbands take their duties and their wives' duties very seriously, especially the childbearing ones. So I like that the husbands are kind of clueless and they're not pressuring the girls to do anything. Hen ends up chatting to a nice man in a wheelchair, a guy, I guess. He asks if he can call on her tomorrow, and he seems really sweet, but he looks too young and a little zesty. He likes to gossip too. Anyway, it gets out that Colin has been helping Penelope find a husband. This is because Eloise told Cressida, so basically the whole town knows. Pen's chances of finding a husband now are pretty much zero. Now remember, Pen is Lady Whistledown, so she's writing this about herself so that she can protect her own identity. Because if she's never critiqued in the pages, people would get suspicious. The Queen stumbles on Francesca playing the piano beautifully, and she's very impressed. She calls her sparkling. Lady Danbury gets a letter and she's expecting an unwanted visitor. Who could it be? Anyway, at the end of episode 2, Colin goes to see Pen and she looks so prettier. They had this kind of scene with Kate in the Moonlight last season as well. I love it. Anyway, she asks Colin if he can kiss her. She's never been kissed and she likely will never be kissed. Even if it means nothing, she just wants to know what it feels like. I hate that this is how their first kiss happens, but it's a very, very romantic kiss. Yeah, it's good. Anyway, she says thank you and she runs off. In episode 3, Colin meets Pen again and he tells her that he can't eat, he can't sleep, he can't concentrate. He's consumed by thoughts of this kiss. They start kissing all steamy again and then Colin suddenly wakes up from his dream, very sweaty. He's all jittery and awkward at Bridgerton breakfast, and honestly, it's very cute. Eloise goes to see Pen. She's not quite ready to reconcile, but she just checks in on her and wishes her well. Pen and Colin have an awkward run-in and she suggests that they keep their distance. She doesn't want to embarrass her family and cause any more of a scandal. They're doing the dance, the let's pretend we both think it's a good idea to stay away from each other, even though we both know that that's the opposite of what we want, but we're not ready to admit it to ourselves yet. That dance. Cressida strikes out again with Lord Debling, the vegetarian, but he and Pen get to chatting again, and I'm telling you, it's immediate sparks. They're so witty and cleverly flirting without even trying. She's very comfortable, and she's just herself, this more laid-back side to her that we rarely get to see, especially when she's with Colin, because she's always uptight and anxious around him. Finally, some actual chemistry, and Shonda had better not ruin this. And since I haven't read the books, I don't know if Penelope and Colin have to end up together, but sorry, I'm already team Debling. There's an outdoor carnival fete type gathering. Colin and Pen get to talking. She buys a cupcake and she looks unintentionally sultry when she licks the icing off her fingers at one moment. Obviously, Colin is a goner at this point. And then, oh no, it seems like Lord Debling is getting along too well with Cressida, even though they have nothing in common. Cressida pretends to like nature and it's working. He invites Pen to join the conversation then, and shame, she doesn't do very well. She's a bit of a third wheel in the scene, and I'm calling it now. They're going to sabotage this so that they can make space for Colin, aren't they? This would be so disappointing and kind of a cop-out. Anyway, I did mute some of this because it was very awkward and I can't handle awkwardness. The other Bridgerton brother has been hiding from the girls and their mothers, and then he meets a woman, an engineer, who takes him by surprise. The Queen introduces Francesca to a man who looks much too old for her. I don't like this. I don't like this at all. No. Then there's an accident at this outdoor event and Lord Debling rushes to Penelope and covers her with his body, saving her from being crushed. But Cressida fakes an injury to divert his attention, and Lord Debling goes to attend to her. This is such a waste of a good scene because the saving her scene was terribly romantic and sweet. Oh well, I guess we don't get nice things. At that evening's ball, Lady Bridgerton drops her glove and a very handsome stranger picks it up. Later on, Cressida and Pen silently compete for Lord Debling's attention. He ends up talking to Cressida and Penelope is overlooked for much of the night. And I'm thinking, hello, we're on episode 3 already. We don't have time for this. Anyway, she does eventually go over to talk to Lord Debling, and I forget what they talk about, but it must have been interesting because he was supposed to take a lemonade over to Cressida, but he gets caught up chatting with Pen. Francesca's guy doesn't work out on account of him telling her that he wants 8 children. Also, I think he's too old. She goes outside then to get some air, and she meets a man who suggests that they enjoy the silence together because he's also been looking to get away. Aw, kindred spirit. Now, is this a good time for us to acknowledge that These white Bridgerton women seem to love black men. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, I promise, but all of them, it's kind of interesting, right? Anyway, that's a story for another day. Our handsome stranger who talked to Lady Bridgerton turns out to be Lady Danbury's brother, Lord Marcus Anderson. So remember the other Bridgerton brother had met the engineering lady at the fete? She's Lady Tilly Arnold and she's a widow. I kind of like them because, you know, they're just proper grown-ups flirting and he really likes her, even though he's still a bit of a scamp. She seems to like that about him. Still, it's kind of boring because they both know what they want, so there's no excitement, there's no anticipation to see what happens with them. Yeah, it's boring. Colin finally can't stay away anymore and he goes to Pen and he's about to confess his love or his desire, but just then Lord Debling asks her for a dance. Sorry, Colin, you need to step back. But I gotta say, as lovely as Lord Debling is there any passion there? No, there isn't. And this might be a problem. Anyway, Colin is off to the side and he's watching them dance. In between the parties, Debling comes to Penelope's house and he brings her a plant and she's happy to see him. Lord Samadani, the 8 kids one, who the Queen had tried to set up with Francesca, is due at the Bridgerton home to visit Francesca. Instead, John Sterling arrives. He's an earl and he's the one from outside the ball the other night. He and Francesca just sit together and they enjoy each other's company in silence, and the family is really fascinated by them because they just sit there. He's impossibly posh and he's a little bit odd like Francesca, like overly polite. And this is the first man that she's taken an interest in, but I mean, he's not very attractive. Lord Samadani finally does arrive and Earl John Sterling has to leave. Anyway, Pen and Lord Debling meet at the next society do, and he asks her, hypothetically speaking, what would happen if I asked for your hand in marriage? See, their marriage would be him off traveling because he travels a lot, and she would be tending to the estate. She thinks that if she had her own interests, which she does, she could be happy. Yeah, I'm sorry to report that while he's the perfectly safe option, this pairing is really low on spice, which is a bummer because Pen is rather passionate and, you know, she loves a romance and she deserves that. Colin goes to drown his sorrows in a threesome with some prostitutes, but he's not into it. He can't do this. He even tries to watch them, but even then, doesn't hold his interest, so he leaves. Francesca and Earl John Sterling bump into each other out in town, and shame, she's so adorable. She shows her interest, but he's too literal, too polite. I don't know, he doesn't laugh, he can't flirt. Much to her disappointment, he excuses himself quite quickly. They do meet later on at a ball and he gives her a letter, a drawing maybe. He also apologizes for rushing off. Lord Debling asks Lady Featherington for Pen's hand in marriage, and of course Lady Featherington is ecstatic. Pen looks unsure. She knows in her heart that she shouldn't have to settle for somebody who is perfectly fine but who doesn't love her. Still, this is a very practical arrangement. Colin's mother tells him that Lady Featherington is telling anybody who would listen that Debling is going to be proposing to Penelope tonight. She knows that he has some feelings for Pen, and part of me wonders if she told him so that he could get out of his mood and maybe take some action. Anyway, at the latest ball, I am obsessed with Queen Charlotte's headpiece. I love it. Lady Danbury is also looking very beautiful as well. Lord Marcus and Lady Bridgerton chat. I'm kind of interested in this romance, even though they're not really giving us much. Colin is brooding in the dark, thinking about Pen. He eventually comes to the ball and then, oh no, Debling is really stepping in it with Pen. Not intentionally though. He's still just a really good and honest man, but he doesn't love Pen. She asks if, you know, they could eventually grow to love each other, and he says he doesn't know. Work takes up so much of his heart, like his environmentalism and that kind of thing, that there's barely enough space for anything else. He's glad that she does live a fulfilling life though. He tells her that she does look beautiful, and he is very attentive. He would be good to Pen, just not good enough. Colin cuts in their dance then and he tells Pen that she cannot marry him. Pen says that she's made her peace with what Debling has to offer. Oh, this is so sad for her. It's already too late for Pen and Debling though, because Cressida lets Debling know that the Bridgertons and the Featheringtons live right across the road from one another. She doesn't do this maliciously, but Debling does know that Pen likes to sit on her windowsill and stare across the street, so he knows now that he's staring at the Bridgerton home. He politely breaks things off with Pen and he tells her that she and Colin have feelings for each other. So yeah, that was a whole lot of nothing burger. Anyway, in a very, very sweet surprise, we find out what John Sterling handed to Francesca. See, when they met out on the street, she critiqued the street performer, and based on her critique, John rearranged the music to be just the way that Francesca liked it. Oh, John Sterling. He's still boring, but okay. Colin goes running after Penelope and they're in a moving carriage, and he tells her that he can't stop thinking about their kiss. He dreams about her and he's been wanting to say something for weeks, They start kissing very passionately, and he has his hand up her dress, busy doing, When the carriage stops in front of his house, he invites her in, and she's scared that the family is going to see her. And he's like, for God's sake, Penelope, are you going to marry me or not? And yeah, that is season 4 of Bridgerton. Now, look, I'm a little bit more convinced by them now than I was at the beginning, but I don't know. This only works for me because they intentionally sabotaged Devlin, who she had better chemistry with. I just liked who Pen was with Devlin. She was confident and funny, and she didn't have to flatter him the whole time, not like she often does with Colin. Also, I was not a fan of the panicked heavy breathing every time she was around Colin. It made me feel kind of anxious as well. And yeah, with all of the Pen and Colin scenes, sure, they were secretly checking each other out, but he didn't actually work at wooing her. I wanted him to call on her at her home, bring her flowers, write her a poem, come and have tea with her family. I wanted a hand brush or more secret passionate kisses in the garden. I love a good hand moment. Remember Simon and Lille from Young Royals? Daphne and Simon even had one as well. And obviously my new obsession, James and Ruby. I don't think Penelope and Colin's one counts because she was tending to him, as she usually is. I don't know, we still have a couple of episodes to go, so we'll see how it pans out. And yeah, if you have seen it, feel free to share your thoughts, and thank you for watching.